cannot believe it. This can't be true. This can't be true. It's a monstrous case. Because it's the own father who did this to his daughter.
Do you think she knew?
We still do not know what his wife really knew.
She took in 3 babies, one after another.
In that video, I mentioned that, at this point, I want the world to end. Everyone should die. I'm not joking. I genuinely want this, because the videos I'm about to tell you about, if they are real, make me think humanity is finished. And it would be better if the world ended. Humanity is already dead, and the world is heading in a very dark direction if people like this exist. While looking into such cases and stories, I came across a true crime case that seems fictional but is shockingly real. When the truth of this case first came out, the police staff thought they were being told a plot of a bad horror movie, but as the evidence surrounding the case began to surface, both the police and the media were in shock. Josef Fritzl, a name once highly respected in society, was behind this horrific case. Many people admired this man, but no one had any idea of what he was doing in his own house for years. Josef was an elderly man who lived with his wife, Rosemarie, and they had 7 children in total. One of them was Elisabeth. Unlike the other children, Elisabeth and Josef never got along. They fought constantly, and because of this, the household was always tense. The real story began when Elisabeth left home to join a cult. One day she randomly disappeared, supposedly to join a cult, or so it was told to Rosemarie. However, the truth was far darker. Elisabeth never actually ran away. She was in the basement of her own home, hidden in an underground bunker that no one knew about. Josef was obsessed with underground bunkers and secret chambers, and he had built one beneath his home, completely hidden from the world. One day, Josef asked Elisabeth to help him fix a door in the cellar, and when she agreed, he took out a cloth soaked in ether, or chloroform, from his pocket and pressed it over her mouth. She passed out immediately. When Elisabeth regained consciousness, she found herself locked inside this secret chamber under their house. In this bunker, which had no ventilation or sunlight, the ceiling was no higher than 6 feet. The room was small, but there were several rooms in total, including 2 small bedrooms, a living area, and a storage area. When Elisabeth went missing, Rosemarie asked Josef where she had gone. Josef told her that Elisabeth had joined a cult and would never come back. Josef secretly brought food and water to Elisabeth in the bunker, and he eventually decided that she would never leave the chamber. Now comes the really dark part. Josef didn't just keep Elisabeth locked up, he also sexually assaulted her repeatedly over the next 4 to 5 years. Elisabeth was assaulted so many times that she eventually became pregnant. She gave birth to a child in the bunker and began raising the child there. A year after the first child was born, Elisabeth became pregnant again and gave birth to another child, raising 2 children in the dark, unventilated bunker, where they had no idea that a world existed outside. Soon after, Elisabeth gave birth to a 3rd child, but this time, Josef took the child out of the bunker and left it at the doorstep of their house, telling Rosemarie that Elisabeth had abandoned the child after joining the cult. Surprisingly, Rosemarie believed Josef, and she began raising the child as her own. Josef continued this cycle, eventually fathering 7 children with Elisabeth, though one of them died shortly after birth. So, 3 children were being raised in the bunker, while the others were raised above ground with Rosemarie. The children in the bunker never saw the sun or felt fresh air, while the ones above lived normal lives. Josef's cruelty knew no bounds. Every time a new child was born, he placed it in a box and left it at the doorstep with the same story about Elisabeth abandoning the child. One day, one of the children in the bunker, Christina, became gravely ill. Elisabeth begged Josef to take Christina to the hospital, and after much pleading, he agreed. When the hospital staff saw Christina, they were shocked. She was pale as snow and severely deficient in vitamin D due to never having seen sunlight. The doctors, needing to treat Christina, asked Josef for her biological history. Josef repeated his fabricated story that Elisabeth had abandoned Christina after joining a cult. The doctors, suspicious of Josef's story, began investigating further. Soon, the media got hold of the story, and Elisabeth's photo was broadcast with a plea for her to come forward. Shockingly, in the bunker, Josef had installed a TV, and one day, Elisabeth saw the news about herself. Realizing that the world was looking for her, Elisabeth begged Josef to take her to the hospital to save her daughter's life. Surprisingly, Josef agreed, but on one condition. Elisabeth had to stick to the story about joining a cult. She agreed, and Josef took her to the hospital. When they arrived, the police arrested Elisabeth, believing she had abandoned her children. But when Elisabeth spoke privately with the police, she revealed the truth. The horrific reality of Josef Fritzl's crimes came to light, shocking the world. Josef was arrested and is now serving time far away from his family in a prison in Austria. I want to leave you with one question. Do you really believe that Josef's wife, Rosemarie, had no involvement in this case? Do you think she didn't know what was going on the entire time, or did she just go along with it? What do you think?